Don't look now, but the AFC South has all the drama you need at the top with the Texans lurking and the Jags sitting tied with the Colts.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network. This is Locked On NFL on that network. We are your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen and also making us the #1 sports podcast network. All right, man. It is Monday, Victory Monday for some, Loser Monday for others. We'll get into that in just a second and give you a rundown for today's show that is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. It is Monday. That means Julian Council from Locked On Panthers, those victorious Panthers, rather. We're going to discuss them in segment 1. But we're going to end the show today talking about how the Broncos hold off Washington, what that means for both teams moving forward. In the middle of the show, the Bills and the Bucs get key wins in their race towards the playoffs. But we're going to start in the AFC South. And give me $500 every time somebody says that, and I'll have just $500 because nobody starts any conversation saying we're going to start with the AFC South. But the Colts had a big lead in the division. Julian, they've squandered it. We wondered if the Colts were for real. We need to be thinking about if the Texans and the Jaguars are for real.
Yeah, we do. And for Indianapolis, we saw their schedule this second half of the season was going to reveal just how good of a football team they are. And now they've lost 2 in a row after their bye week at Kansas City. No shame in that. And then at home against the Houston Texans. And now next week, that sets up a massive matchup, probably the biggest matchup in week 14 when they head on the road to Jacksonville to face off against their division tied Jacksonville Jaguars. So, yeah, this is going to get a little dicey when you have Seattle after that, San Francisco, Jacksonville again, Houston. Not any rest for the rest of the way.
No, man. And Daniel Jones around here hobbling with a bad fibula. Here's the guys from Locked On Colts, and the funny part is this is a post-game mention, and he already mentions the game next week against my Jacksonville Jaguar.
It looks like the Indianapolis Colts might be in a little bit of trouble here. They are now 8-4 on the season after dropping 20-16 to the Houston Texans. Their first loss here at home at Lucas Oil Stadium on the season. The Jaguars won their 8-4. The Texans are now 7-5. So the Colts once had a firm grip on the AFC South, but now it's kind of up for grabs at this point. Colts, Jaguars next week, monumental game. But this matchup itself, really kind of tough to diagnose. This is a game of such minuscule details, and the Colts had some drops. They had a missed extra point. The officiating, I hate to be the officiating guy, but I think it did play a role. All on one series, you have what should have been a delay a game, phantom DPI, and then the extra point at the end of the drive didn't even go in. We're going to talk way more about this on the Cold Squad Show, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Texans are dangerous, and here's why. Usually when you see a team that has great defense, and that's what everyone leads with, they got a real good defense, they usually have a quarterback that is suspect at throwing the ball. They usually have a quarterback that's a runner and people aren't sure. CJ Stroud has arm talent, and CJ Stroud has a whole bunch of wide receivers that can catch it. That's a dangerous, dangerous football team down the stretch.
Yes, they are. And they're also dangerous because when you look at the reigning strength of schedule, it's 24th in the league. Looking at the rest of the division, Jacksonville 16th, Indianapolis number 1. Like the Colts are just going to be really up against it the rest of the way. And I'm not even sure at this point in time if they're going to make the playoffs. You look at just the AFC playoff picture. They're sitting 6th right now at 8-4, right there ahead of Buffalo, who's 8-4, Houston, who is 7-5. I'm thinking that at minimum, you're going to have to probably be 11-6 to make the wild card in the playoffs there this year. Maybe even 12-5. Like, I think certainly in the NFC, 12-5 might be what you got to be to get a wild card. So it's going to be tough for them. And obviously CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in that division. Daniel Jones, who's playing on a broken leg. How is that even possible that he's playing with a broken leg? Maybe it's a hairline fracture in his fibula. I don't know what the case is, but that's a situation where, and for anybody, really one play is all it takes. But that's a situation that you can't really be that confident that he's going to be able to play out the rest of the season with that fracture. Trevor Lawrence, I look at—
he looked good yesterday. He looked good
but
yesterday.
that's the thing. It's like so Jekyll Hyde with him right now, to where I see some days it's like, all right, Trevor looks good. I see other days like, okay, oh man, look at all this guaranteed money they owe him. They're not gonna be able to get rid of Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to go with Houston, I guess, at this point in time, because I trust CJ Stroud to beat Ryans, and I look at how easy their schedule is compared to Jacksonville and, of course, compared to Indianapolis. This is going to be a fun race in the AFC South to see how that plays out, where they still probably can get two teams in the wild or into the playoffs, one winning division, one winning the wild card. I'm not sure, though, that's going to be Indianapolis.
Yeah, so the Jags have 2 games against the Colts. They play the Titans again, who they beat yesterday handily. And then they got a game against the Jets and the Broncos. So they got to make sure they don't go to sleep at the wheel against the Jets and the Titans. And then even if they split with the Colts, that gets them to that 11 wins. I don't want to talk about your team, though, because it is hard in this league to win games against teams that are good teams. It is even harder in this league to beat 3 of them. How about Dallas, Green Bay, and now the Rams? That is exactly what Carolina did. Let's hear from my man Rogers out there with LA, the Los Angeles Rams podcast, the Locked On Rams, and then Travis Rogers. And then we'll come back. I'm going to let Julie tell us for about 3 minutes what is going on with those Panthers.
Rams lose 31-28, week 13, and one of the uglier games you're going to see Matthew Stafford play. He sets an NFL record, 28 consecutive touchdowns without an interception, and then he throws 2 in his next 3 passes, including one that goes for a pick 6. They can't get lined up. They get a delay of game penalty, and then a strip sack fumble that basically ended the Rams' chances. They fall to 9-3. They fall out of the top spot in the NFC. D-Mac and I have it all for you on Locked On Rams. Don't be late. We'll see you then.
Mike Jack, don't be saying he threw. All right, the first one got tipped. The second one, Mike Jack broke on it and said, hee, all the way down the sideline, right? So look, I'm telling you, man, you don't do that by accident. I saw Dave Canales, his speech in the locker room. It seems like he has done the same thing that Liam Cohen here. He's made these dudes believe, man, you can't win those type of games if you don't.
Yeah, and I was talking to Austin Corbett, their starting center, yesterday about this in the locker room, just the culture that Dave's been able to build. And Dave has come in and been the same guy since day one. That's what Austin told me, and that he's really got guys to buy in throughout all the ups and downs. Like, this is a team that started off 0-2. And a lot of fans are thinking, oh, well, here we go again, another bad start to the season. They blow out Atlanta, win 30-0, then go to New England and get absolutely destroyed before we even knew the Patriots were a good team. The next Sunday, New England won on the road on Sunday night against Buffalo. So it's like, okay, maybe that was not that bad of a loss. After that, they're down 17-0 against Miami. Bryce Young has 2 terrible turnovers in that game, but then he makes some big plays. The defense able to get some stops. They come back, win that game. They win against Dallas. They win against New York. They get pasted at home against Buffalo. Then surprise the league by winning against Green Bay, just to lose to the 1-win Saints. Then to have Bryce Young throw for 448 yards. Then what happened on Monday night against the 49ers to what happened yesterday against the Rams. It's been up, down, up, down. It's been a wild season. Like I told Corbett too, it's like, look, you guys have not been boring to cover. I'll say that at least. Like, it has been an entertaining season to watch what y'all have been able to do. But yeah, it's interesting because I walked into that game yesterday. I don't know how you feel sometimes going to these games. I woke up yesterday, I was like, I don't want to do this. I have no interest in walking over there, watching this team go out there and get their ass kicked by the Rams. I've been very upfront that I think the Rams are going to win a Super Bowl. You look at FanDuel, they still are top odds to win the Super Bowl. And losing yesterday does not change my opinion of that team. Like, that was a bad day for Matthew Stafford and a great day for that Panthers defense that was without J.C. Horn, mind you, and without Trevon Merrick. So that's a big day for them. I just did not think that this team could stand with a team like that. I look at New England as on the same tier as Los Angeles. I look at Buffalo as on the same tier. I do not look at Green Bay as being on the same tier. So I don't think the Packers are that good of a football team. And even at this point in time, I don't think the Packers are that much ahead of Dallas. So when Carolina got those wins, Dallas, good win. Green Bay, surprising, but I don't think the Packers are all that good. I mean, they're going to be a playoff team, of course. I just didn't think that Carolina had this in them. And when you win this type of game at home, you got a bye week and get healthy. You're going to New Orleans after that. You need 3 more wins. And if you win all 3 of your division games, that means beating the Saints, sweeping Tampa, you're going to be hosting a playoff game, which has not happened here in a decade. So Dave Canales has done a great job. Bryce Young, as mercurial as that has been this year with the lack of consistency in the passing game, he threw some dimes yesterday, including that 4th and 3 throw in the third quarter to Jalen Coker, had another 4th and 2 to Tedero McMillan, where they scored a touchdown 2 times on 4th down and short. They go for it, and they hit it for 6. So I appreciate Canales finally not coaching scared and letting his quarterback do his thing. And the big thing, too, that comes out of that game, aside from what Bryce in the passing game were able to do, was they finally, for the first time this season, got both Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle to have good games on the same day. And constantly, Dave's been asked about this. I really haven't worried about it that much when it comes to the running back rotation, but he's been asked, okay, are you going to keep doing a rotation? You're going to go with Rico? What's it going to be? And he said both those guys are better together. Rico Dowdle said that. Chuba Hubbard said that, and eventually it played out. So that was a big thing that I saw in that game on Sunday. So, yeah, Carolina's in it at 7-6. You're going into December, or you're here in December. You're playing meaningful football for the first time since like 2022, when it was only really the case because the division was so bad. So, yeah, we'll see what they can do. They're in it. I'm glad to not be talking about a bad team and getting people sending me their mock drafts at this time in the year. So, yeah, big win for Carolina, and it can set up in 3 weeks, the biggest home game in years here in Charlotte.
Absolutely. And a couple of other teams, Bills and Bucks, needed wins yesterday in a bad way, and they both got them. We'll talk about it in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. Let's be honest. Getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets at every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. All right, with my man Julian Council here, running it down about all of the action from yesterday's action anyway, using the help of local experts, which is what we do here on Locked On NFL. And the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, not the Charlotte Bills, the Buffalo Bills.
Well, might as well be the Charlotte Bills.
Yeah.
They all live here.
Yeah, gotcha. The Buffalo Bills won a big game after being really, really disappointing. And for the second time in 3 weeks, their defense actually showed up and played pretty well. Here's Joe Marino.
The Buffalo Bills get a much-needed 26-7 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers and played the exact style of game they needed to play. It was a cold, breezy day in Pittsburgh. The Bills were without both starting offensive tackles, no Dalton Kincaid, no Josh Palmer. It was going to be tough to throw the football. They needed to be able to lean on their running backs and their run game. That's exactly what the Bills did. 51 rushes, 249 yards, and a touchdown, overcoming a bad James Cook fumble, overcoming a Josh Allen interception. The Bills defense responds, gets 2 huge second-half takeaways, and the Bills pull away with a much-needed win as they were the final seed in the AFC. Entering the week, they stay alive with their win and improve to 8-4.
hanging in there for the wild card because I think the Patriots going to run away with it. But this game was more about what I saw, the picture of Aaron Rodgers sitting there at the end of his career with gray in his goatee. Shout out to the people with gray in their goatee, but with blood dripping down from his forehead and his nose. It's kind of the microcosm of like the last 3 years for Aaron, and that picture kind of says it all to me.
Yeah, he went into the darkness and he stayed into the darkness, even though he thought he came out. Because, like, come on, man. A guy who does that and he comes out saying, I want to play for the Jets is someone that you need to be worried about. And then now in Pittsburgh, it has not gone well recently. As I look at that division, obviously the Ravens are sitting there in the catbird seat at this point in time. I guess they're tied right at 6-6. And you look at Week 18, Sunday Night Football potentially could be the Ravens and the Steelers, which I'm sure the NFL and NBC would love to see. I would personally love to see Carolina and Tampa Bay, but we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, I was looking at it. Joe Burrow's now back. And, you know, last year they went on that run at the end of the season, and I'm not going to count. I mean, Cincinnati's defense is still awful, but I'm not going to.
But they play well. Their defense played well 2 weeks in a row.
They did, but maybe it's just because, like, maybe they didn't believe in Flacco. They damn sure didn't believe in Jake Browning, but maybe it's like, okay, Joe's back. Let's get our stuff together. Let's get right, and let's get these wins and get to 9-8. Like, that might be it for you in the AFC North this year. But yeah, Buffalo. I'm looking at just the AFC playoff standings. Who do you actually trust that would take down Buffalo at this point in time? Because I'm looking at it. Denver, I understand they've won 9 in a row. We're going to talk about them momentarily. You buying into them beating Buffalo? Are you buying into my guy Drake May in New England, who's also won 9 in a row, beating Buffalo? The playoffs started today, which I know they don't. Will be New England hosting Buffalo. You buying into that? You buying into Jacksonville? I'm sure I'm not going to do that. Baltimore, we've seen them try and fail multiple times. The Chargers, the Colts, and then I think they're not going to be there, in my opinion. So, I mean, FanDuel has Buffalo with the top odds in the AFC to win the Super Bowl at plus 1,000. And I know y'all don't want Kansas City to be in the playoffs. I just know for my peace of mind, I would like to see Mahomes there because that's the only team I have any faith in to prevent
Josh
one
Allen.
of the most awful scenes we have ever seen in the 21st century if the Buffalo Bills are playing in the Super Bowl. I can't do those 2 weeks. I won't be here. I won't be here doing the show. I'll be leaving my hometown of Charlotte if that happens.
I got you, man. You said you would rather see the Bucs and the Panthers, and I understand why, because the Bucs won, keeping their little stranglehold on the lead in the NFC South. But guess what, man? Carolina might have something to say. Kind of sounds like Outkast at the Source Awards in '93. Carolina has something to say. But here's James Yako to talk about their key win yesterday, and they needed it, man, because the Bucs been reeling lately.
The Bucs get the job done against the Cardinals. I am James Yarko, host of Locked On Bucs, talking about the Buccaneers' 20-17 win over the Arizona Cardinals to finally snap that losing streak and get back in the win column. It was an emotional game for the Bucs. They inducted Simeon Rice into the Ring of Honor at halftime, but as for the Bucs on the field, it was the return of Bucky Irving, who finished the game with 81 all-purpose yards, as well as his first rushing touchdown of the season. It was great to see him back. Hassan Reddick returned. Ben Bredesen returned. And the Bucs had some really nice moments, but couldn't quite finish drives. The defense gets 2 takeaways in this game, couldn't capitalize on those takeaways with points on the offensive side. It got close. It got dicey after a solid first half. The defense for the Buccaneers struggled in the second half, but they got the stop when it mattered most, stopping the Cardinals on 4th and 2 in order to seal the game. For more on this and all things Buccaneers, check out the Locked On Bucs podcast 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
They're banged up, man, but ain't nobody feeling sorry for them. The Jaguars got banged up players too. This is football. But the thing is though, how is that matchup? Do you think Carolina matches up well with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to try to win the division?
Yeah, potentially. And I look at both these teams right now. The only games that matter for them, sitting at 7-5 for Tampa and Carolina sitting at 7-6 heading into their bye week. Only games that matter are the divisional games. I look at Tampa Bay. They still have to play Atlanta, New Orleans, and then they play Carolina twice. Like if they lose to Miami, who's won 3 in a row, by the way, it's not going to matter. They just have to take care of their divisional games. They're 2-0 right now in the division. If they win their 4 divisional games, get to 6-0, they will be in the playoffs yet again, whether they beat the Dolphins or not. And for Carolina, it's the same case. Whether you beat Seattle in week 17 does not matter. Just beat New Orleans and sweep Tampa, and you've won the division. So it will be interesting to see. Like, obviously, like you look at quarterback, I'm taking Baker over Bryce Young. Just be honest. Offensive line, Carolina, they've had 10 different starting offensive line combinations, but that standard has not dropped off. So I'm not really worried about them there. I know Tampa's had their own injuries. Wide receiver, Mike Evans, will he be back potentially for that week 18 and week 16 matchup? We'll see. But that's been a concern for them. But I don't know, like kind of a wash there. Running back probably give Carolina the advantage. So it'd be interesting to see how that all plays out at the end. I guess those are going to be 2 games, week 16 and 18, where I look forward to talking to Yarko, who I'm sure will give Carolina absolutely zero chance at winning either one of those games, as he typically does. But yeah, I would still give Tampa the advantage, absolutely, because when you get late into the year, what quarterback do you rely on? Who do you believe in most? And with Bryce, it's just I have not seen him string together 2 positive performances in a row. If he can do that coming out of the bye week against New Orleans, then okay, then you maybe feel good about the Panthers heading into that home matchup in week 16 against the Bucs, or maybe it's week 16 against the Bucs. We'll see how it plays out, but I would favor Tampa Bay at this point in time.
You asked me a question earlier that was really rhetorical and it was open-ended, but I'll get a chance to answer it in segment 3. When you asked me who can stop the Bills, player-wise, you need Mahomes. Coaching-wise, I think Denver can, and I think New England can because of who those coaches are. It gives me a little confidence. I'll talk about it. I know you're ready to do it now. In segment 3 of Locked on NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, coaching changes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, shout out to Lane Kiffin, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement for the holiday sports schedule. Also, make sure you dive in, and check that out. You do it by downloading the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, the Denver Broncos survived in overtime last night, but as we always say here on Locked on NFL, the #1 sports podcast network, we always say a win is a win, and Denver got another win. I have a lot of confidence in Sean Payton and their defense. Even though Bo Nix is a little bit inconsistent himself, they just play hard, and they're not an easy out for anybody. Washington wasn't an easy out for them last night. Here's Cody Rourke from Locked on Broncos.
The Denver Broncos survived an overtime thriller on Sunday Night Football against the Washington Commanders to improve to 10-2, but there are a lot of questions coming out of Week 13 here for this Denver team. Starting off here with the Broncos offense. They found a way to put up 27 points in this matchup against that Commanders defense, but the consistency with the run-pass balance is still a major question and a major issue here for Sean Payton's offense. Bo Nix threw the ball for over 40 times. If they want to sustain and win the division here in the AFC West and make a deep playoff run, this cannot continue here. Defensively, the Broncos, they looked like the inverse of what we've seen through the first 11 weeks, giving up over 400 yards to a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota. No disrespect to him, But the Broncos defense made him look like the Heisman winner that we saw at the University of Oregon when he played there for the Ducks. For more, make sure you check out Locked On Broncos.
What do you think about that game from Denver, man? Is that what we're going to get? Is Bo Nix just going to Bo Nix, and we're just going to have to hope that Sean Payton can dial it up or dial him back?
Look at their 9-win streak right now. You look at these games, the only convincing results they have had were back in week 4 against Cincinnati. That was the first week that they didn't have Joe Burrow. So, I mean, congratulations for beating up on Jake Browning. And then they beat Dallas back in week 8 by 20 points. Other than that, we're looking at a 4-point win against Philadelphia on the road, which obviously is a big win. You're looking at a 2-point win against the Jets on the road, which, okay, that comeback at home against the Giants by 1 point, the 3-point win on the road against Houston, which is a good win, a 3-point win against the Raiders, a 3-point win at home against Kansas City, good win. And then what we watched last night, that's a bunch of one-score ball games. And I understand that the NFL is a league where you're going to have a lot of one-score games. You got to be able to find those small margins that can get you over the top. But didn't we see a team in Minnesota a couple years ago do this, where they played a bunch of one-score games all year long, and they had that one great game against a Giants team in the regular season, and then what happened at the end of the day? The Giants got them back the second time around in the playoffs. Am I really supposed to buy into this, that this team that's winning kind of by the skin of the teeth every single week is going to actually maintain this all the way to the Super Bowl? I'm not buying it, which again, I beg the question, who's stopping Buffalo? Because I'm not taking Denver in a one-score game in the playoffs against the Bills, even if that game is in Mile High. I don't trust it. I don't.
Yeah, walking on that tightrope, man, all the wind has to do is blow, and you got a problem. So voluntarily playing on that tightrope every single week seems like it's a little bit of a non-starter, because at some point, some things you can't control are going to affect you. Like Washington. Washington had injuries to their quarterback, Jaden Daniels. They've had injuries to their best wide receiver, Terry McLaurin. But the thing is everyone told them that they were moving too fast. It's like a teenager that gets money in their pocket. Don't spend it. Just wait. Washington says, no, we're going for it right now, and made a whole bunch of moves in the offseason that really made them too old at certain spots, and they're really a non-competitive team. But they'll show you glimpses like they did last night. Here's my man, David Harrison from Locked On Commanders.
Signs of life from the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football, but honestly, more like signs of what this Washington Commanders team could have been. Getting Terry McLaurin back certainly was an important factor, but this team also getting the ground game going, putting up nearly 30 points against one of the best defenses in the National Football League, taking a division leader near the month of December all the way to overtime, coming up just inches short of getting the upset win over the Denver Broncos. Literally inches. If that ball clears Nick Bonito's hands in the overtime 2-point conversion attempt, it's wide open for a walk-in score conversion and win for the Washington Commanders. I know the silver linings aren't necessarily what everybody is looking for this time of year, but when you're 3-9 and unfortunately now on a 7-game losing streak, these are the kinds of things the Washington Commanders are looking for to show that they have the potential in the locker room they thought they had at the beginning of the season, and so things they're going to look to build on as they look ahead to 2026. They're going to do it week by week. We're also going to do it week by week. Locked On Commanders, 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Last offseason, Washington, if they did self-inventory and self-reflection, would have said, we're probably not as good as our record, so we don't need to act like that. This offseason, they probably need to have the reverse discussion and say, we're probably not as bad as our record, but we still have to do things to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Are they as bad as it seems?
I just think it's the NFL, and not for long. This is what happens. We looked at that team last year defensively. They really weren't that great. They caught lightning in a bottle with Jaden Daniels as a rookie quarterback. And we have seen time and time again, guys have sophomore slumps or the injuries that have plagued him this season. And it's hard to contain and maintain what you did. And you look at Philadelphia, while there's been a lot of questions about the Eagles and how good that team actually is this year, and all the A.J. Brown of it all and the Jalen Hurts of it all and Nick Sirianni. It's happening again. Is it 2023 all over again? I mean, they've still been able to maintain and be a team atop of the division because they have built a culture there. They have built a foundation, and that's still something that Dan Quinn is trying to build in Washington. Year one was awesome. Everyone had a blast. Year two has not been as fun, but they'll be better for it in the long run. I do think that, and I think that they'll still have an opportunity in the future to get back to the playoffs and have chances to win games. But going back to what Dan Campbell said a couple of years ago, when the Lions blew that game against San Francisco, that may have been their only chance. And you look at last year, and I said at the time that this may be their only shot to get to where they got, especially when you look at just how good the NFC West been this year, how Dallas has bounced back here over the last month of the season, Chicago being one of the surprises of the year. Didn't work out for Washington this season. They'll get back to the drawing board, try to find some better continuity and build upon what this foundation's been the last 2 years and see if they can go at it again in 2026 and prevent being 3-9, 12 weeks into it next year as well.
Silver lining, when you have your quarterback, you ain't got to try to be going and getting one. And now you can move around and maneuver and get all of these draft choices. You still got to make the picks. But the silver lining is having a quarterback on a rookie deal, which really helps you salary cap wise. And it also helps you mentally because you know you don't have to go out and find that guy because you already have him. And not very many people have a dude that we can call him at the quarterback position. Maybe 8 teams in the National Football League. So that's the silver lining. The other silver lining is you get to do this with us twice a day here on Locked On NFL. Tyler rolling early in the morning like a double shot of espresso will let you know everything about tonight's Monday night game after the game is over and early in the morning. And then I'll slide back through tomorrow in the afternoon here on Locked On NFL. Kevin Ostracker will be here tomorrow, as always, on Tuesdays. Y'all make sure you check out Julian Council over at Locked On Panthers. They're winning. You have a reason to go over there and listen and watch. Same with me with the Jaguars. One day we're going to have the discussion how we kind of in the same boat a little bit with those two franchises. But until we have that discussion, we appreciate you guys. We don't take you for granted. We're glad that you spend time here with us each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On NFL.